You sure did, Coco.
We'll give another minute for people to get logged in and before we get started today.
Hi, Chuck. It's Kate.
Hey, Kate.
How are you doing?
Oh, doing good. How you doing?
Doing good. How are your travels?
Yeah, it was good. Had a good trip.
Good.
It's always good to be back.
Excellent.
Your family's good?
So far, so good. Yes. Yes,
Great.
yes. I'm calling in from the car, which is why I don't have my video on. To make a quick check, apparently there's an alarm at a storefront that I need to go check, but I am with you.
All right. It's 7:31. We'll do one more minute. Looks like we got about 30 on the call. We're just give everyone just one more minute to find their way in.
Chuck, do we have John or Brandy on?
No.
I don't see them yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen them yet.
Can you go outside again?
Jenny, are you reaching out to John or Brandy?
I can. I was just booting up my computer, so in case one of us needs to take notes, I just got to switch gears.
Okay.
But yeah, let me email them real quick and see if they're joining. And I'll have my video on shortly.
Everybody, thanks for your patience. We're just going to allow John, Keller, or Brandy to get on this call. So. All right, Jenny, you ready?
Just about. Give me just a minute. Let me just
Okay.
finish logging in and moving things around. All right, why don't we get started in the interest of time, and then if they jump in, then they can, I'll just send them what after the meeting.
Well, welcome everybody. February 4th Community Council meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Trust that you've had a great week and you've stayed safe today in this wonderful wintry mix that we've been experiencing. And I'm glad to see everybody on this call. We have an exciting call, a lot of good information, and you'll get to be a part of what I think will be a really unique time, especially for our district. So we're so glad that you're with us. The first order of business that we need to take care of is to go ahead and to approve the minutes from December 10th. So I'd like a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you so much. And somebody to second it.
Second.
Excellent. Thank you, Natalie. All in favor of approving the minutes, respond with a thumbs up or an eye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And,
Aye.
and opposed by the same. All right. Looks like the ayes have it. Let the record show that the December 10th minutes have been approved. And now we can move on to our superintendent report. Dr. Pruitt-Adams.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and I am going to jump off as soon as I make this report. I have quite a few things I want to update you on. The first one being that, just a reminder, that tomorrow is a remote learning day. I think it's in the calendar.
If you're not speaking, can you put yourself on mute? Kate, I think that's you, maybe.
That's Kate. As you know, we've kicked off our hybrid plan. This week was freshman orientation. I'm just talking. This week, well, thank you, everyone. I don't know if you could hear me before my phone, I went mute. Just wanted to remind you that tomorrow is a remote learning day. It's been indicated in our calendar. Due to the weather, all teachers will be working remote tomorrow, even those who are normally on site. This was our first week for our freshman orientation. Our freshmen attended many snippets of their class in the morning and did some activities in the afternoon. They came in alignment with their cohort groups, either O, P, R, or F. Next week, we will start all of our students on site who signed in for hybrid learning. We had approximately 2,200 students sign up for hybrid learning. They are broken off into, as I said, cohorts of O, P, R, and F. Monday and Tuesday will be O days. Then we will move forward 2 days each. Also, the saliva screening, I am so pleased to say, is going extremely well. We've not had any incidents thus far of students who have tested positive to be sent to have a COVID test. We've had one positive test, and that person actually, the day that the saliva screen came back with them being positive, they notified us. And so it's really serving as one of the best levels of our mitigation. For those of you who don't know, our current levels of mitigation are everyone must wear a mask at all times while in the building, must maintain a social distance, continuously wash hands. We also have as another level our self-certification health survey that everyone must fill out. Even though students who are in remote have the opportunity to do that screener. Once students enter the building, and we ask that you, the parents, fill out that survey. Once they enter the building, they show the green arrow, or they can use their ID badge. Once that's done, it will tell us whether or not they have taken the saliva screener and done well, and whether or not you as parents have completed their self-certification app. On the days that they come in that's not done, they will be directed to a station that will assist them. But we do ask that you fill out that every day, those of you who have selected hybrid. The email comes through about 4:20 every morning. There's a different one every day. Also, as you know, the IHSA has started up sports. And so any student who is currently signed up to be remote has the opportunity to also participate in sports and activities. The requirement, however, is that they too participate in saliva screening. And so if you have a child who has signed up and they're not a part of hybrid, all you have to do is come up to the school. There is a packet available for them. When they enter in the evenings as well, they will go through the screening. The self-help app, if they haven't filled that out, we will be there to take their temperatures and ask the appropriate questions. If you are looking for our metrics, they're on our website. If you look at them now, they will show that we should be in a hybrid mode. The areas that we focus on are on-campus positive cases, any cases that are epidemiologically connected, and what we call presumptive positive, and that's from our saliva screener. That's weighted about 80% on our metrics. The other areas of our metrics are cases per 100,000 for Oak Park and River Forest, positivity rate for Oak Park and River Forest, cases per 100,000 for Cook County, and positivity rate for Cook County. That's about all I have today on my report. I do want to take a moment and thank Misty Olson. For those of you who have been in our building, you know, navigating the building, the signage is off. There's no logic to the wayfaring. And so Misty has taken on leading the group of some students, staff, and other members of addressing our wayfaring. So thank her for that. I'm open for any questions that you may have of me before I step off.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. Are there any questions from the council?
Just a quick question, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. Was there any test conducted with the teachers wearing masks and then talking through Zoom to see whether those students at home would hear them clearly enough?
Yes, we actually purchased additional technologies where we did a demonstration even for the board. Wherever that teacher is in that classroom, they can be heard very clearly. We also purchased additional cameras so that the teachers have the latitude to move around in spaces. And so the teachers were there before our students, and we've gotten rave reviews on how that's going.
Thank you.
Dr. Pruitt-Adams, I have two questions. The first is, if a student misses their drop-off for the saliva test, but can produce a PCR test or even a rapid test showing that they are negative, can they enter into the building?
You know, we've not been asked that question, but if it is a recent test, we will take it. However, we will require that any of the follow-up weeks, because we test every week, that they would need to do their saliva screening. We also have a drop box located in 7 different locations throughout Oak Park and River Forest. And so if you miss that night, say for instance, you missed the night because you have to drop by 6, you can also, if you want, do a drop that morning, the next morning.
Okay. Will that then allow the student in for their cohort if it's just one day ahead?
If it's just one day at the ahead, we would be okay with that. We
Okay.
just don't want that to be a consistent.
Of course. Okay. And then the
And,
second
sorry.
question I had was,
Can I-
if my student is participating in sports, which will bring them to the building almost every day, but not for their cohort, do they need to do the saliva testing every Friday?
There's a specific date. If your student is not in the hybrid learning and is chosen to be remote, the drop day for students in sports and clubs is Friday. If your student is a hybrid student, we would prefer that they drop with their cohort group.
Okay, that's what it was very clear for remote students, but it was a little less clear if the student was hybrid. Okay, thank you so much.
And sorry, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, as a follow-up to Venus's question, this is Jenny Faulkner. When you say drop the next day, is that in the drop box?
In the
In one of the
drop
7 drop in one of the 7 drop boxes.
In one of the 7
So
drop
you could drop it Saturday morning, for example, if they missed.
boxes.
Okay, and they still be okay for the following week if they were coming in for sports or driver's ed or something. Or
Well, we prefer sports on Friday, but yes, we would have it. What
Okay.
we've done is we have an identification code for every student. And so we will be able to tell if we would rather have a screen late than to not have it at all. And we do drops even on the weekend. We do pickups and drop-offs to the lab even on the weekends.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's very helpful.
Excellent. Any other questions from the panel?
I don't have a question, just a comment. This is Susan Altair, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in like getting this plan together and executing it and communicating it. Speaking for myself alone, I feel lucky to live where we live and be a part of this district and how it's being handled. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We know there's going to be some bumps along the way, but we try to address them as soon as possible.
Yes, thank you to your team, Dr. Pruitt-Adams.
Thank you so much. If there are no other questions from me, thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. Have a good evening as well.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we're going to keep moving. Would like to turn the floor to District 97.
I think that's me.
Thank you, Venus.
Pretty brief update in that D97 started hybrid learning this week, as did D200. And for as much as I could see on social media and the few people that I talked to, it went really well this week so far for kids and for parents. The middle school has a little bit of a different schedule than the elementary school, but parents and teachers were provided, kids wore masks, teachers wore masks, and any teachers that needed any sort of additional accommodations with the appropriate documentation were provided those. So far so good. And for the middle school, it's each grade goes each week for 4 days until from like 9 to 1. And then they do asynchronous learning in the afternoon or remote learning in the afternoon. But it's going pretty well so far. Additionally, the schools are coming up with, there was an anonymous donor that provided monies to the PTOs right around Christmas time. And so each of the PTOs at each of the schools is coming up with a sort of welcoming idea / gift for each of the students to help keep their spirits up and to welcome them back for those that are doing hybrid learning and those doing remote learning, to sort of welcome them back into the fold of the school. So the PTOs are in the process of delivering some of those that are ready, or ideally it should happen by the end of the month, but they are going to be documenting that. And so we'll be able to get that out to the community just for everyone to see that we're really working hard to keep kids' spirits up. That's it.
That's great. Thank you, Venus. District 90. Okay. And how about District 200? Matt, is that you?
Yeah. Hi, Chuck. Yeah, thanks. I won't add too much more. Dr. Pruitt-Adams covered a ton of ground. We had 2 meetings last week. One was on race, and then the other was our regular meeting. And our next meeting is a week from tonight, a committee of the whole. And it's the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday each month. So for those who may not know, about 4 months ago, we shifted so we give more time between the committee of the whole meeting and the regular. And the athletic director that was hired, which many of you probably already know about, may have read about, may have even been involved in the process, is someone that we're really excited about. She starts on July 1st, and the board is knee deep in the superintendent search, and we're having one-on-one interviews with the consultants. I know, I think I see both of them here tonight. And so I'm eager to mute myself and hear from all of you about this. So thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt, so much. Yeah, without further ado, then I'm going to turn the floor over to the associates from HYA. And we look forward to this opportunity to be able to hear from and speak to the movement and the search for a new superintendent. So HYA, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Chuck. And really, we appreciate the opportunity to meet with the community council tonight. Connie and I will start by introducing ourselves. And then if I can do a quick slide share, I can lay out kind of the why and the what we're doing tonight in a few moments. But as president of HYA, I get to pick and choose which searches I want to work on. And when I saw this was open, I jumped at the chance. I started my career in education back in the late 60s in a college program called The Better Chance, when I worked with 12 young men from Harlem in a 24/7 residential program for a summer. And it was one of those life-changing experiences, and learning back then about opportunity, equity, and had the opportunity to really get to know these kids and learn from them, and go on, and just made it my life's work. So, and also I'm a graduate of Lyons Township. Don't hold that against me. But I know Oak Park well, attended football games there, and had friends in the band. And it's a great district with a long tradition of excellence. And it's great to work with the board and for the board and to serve your community. So with that, I'll ask Connie to introduce herself. You probably know her better than you do me, that's for sure. And then we'll get into hearing from you.
Hello, it's good to be here. And as Max said, we are excited about this opportunity. We've had some wonderful meetings thus far with a number of individuals as well as small focus groups. And we're interested in what you have to say this evening also. I have been a superintendent for 16 years. I retired 2 years ago. And one of those superintendencies was here in Oak Park in District 97. So from 2005 to 2010, I was superintendent there, and I reside in Oak Park. And I have continued to over, the last 15 or 16 years. And so it's been a pleasure. I have a granddaughter at Brooks. And so therefore it's always exciting to hear what's going on in all of the schools, whether at the high school, the elementary level, et cetera. So we are excited to be here. Thank you for having us. And we are anxious to hear what you have to say.
Great, great. Good. So thank you, Connie. And as far as where we are in the process, this is the engaged phase. We're getting feedback through individual interviews, as Matt mentioned a few moments ago, through a whole array of focus groups. We will have a all staff forum on the 18th and an all community forum on February 23rd. We are already recruiting candidates. We plan to present a slate to the board in early March, and then they can, or mid-March, and they'll perhaps third round interviews. And our goal is to get a candidate hired early in April. So this is a great opportunity at the front end to have some input. And so let's share for a moment why we're doing this, and then we'll get into what we're going to do tonight. So this is the why. We like to start with the why. This enables us, to develop this leadership profile report, and we use it for recruiting candidates. Connie and I have a network of 90 consultants across the country. So we share the data and the information from this report. Of course, we share it with the board and the community because we think that's important. But we want to share it with our consultants who can recruit candidates because we find probably 60% of the candidates who we end up slating actually come from direct recruitment, and perhaps more these days. Then we use it to select candidates. We use the information as a basis for interview questions. We provide it to the board so they can use it for their first, second, and third round interview questions, develop scenarios and all that. And finally, once a superintendent selected, we sit down with that individual and the board, and map out a 100-day plan based on what we learned from all this background information, and also set goals for the first year. So your voice matters, and it matters a lot. So let's talk about the what. We really just have 3 areas where we want to have questions. I will facilitate, Connie, and that's only because Connie volunteered to be the scribe. She's been talking all day to different groups, and she's had probably twice as many as I have today. So we'll let her scribe. And she and I were at another meeting until very late last night. So my handwriting and typing would be illegible at this point. So thanks, Connie. But we want to go, what do you especially value regarding your schools and your community? The strengths you desire to retain and build upon. We want somebody who wants to be here and has reason to be here, not someone who's leaving to get away from a district. So we want to write in the report, identify what those strengths are. We also want to identify the challenges because we want to find candidates, knowing that no district is alike. We want to find candidates who have tackled similar challenges, have work products and demonstrated evidence to prove that they tackled similar challenges successfully. And finally, professional and personal qualifications, attributes, experience, expertise you would like to have. And so as far as how to participate, of course, I think now that we're all panelists in the webinar, I think the Q&A icon's off. So we'll just use chat and raise hand, and I'll do my best. And Chuck, if you could help me out when you see folks' hands up or microphones unmuted or waving or something. I do have a grid view. I'm not sure I can see everybody all at once, and of course we can't get everybody on here. So please feel free to jump in to use, raise your hand to use chat. And with that, let's begin. Oh, Chuck, what's our time frame tonight? Let me clarify.
We have about 55 minutes. We like to end by 9, so we probably got a good 55 minutes before we transition to member announcements.
Okay, yeah, generally these take about 45 minutes, so we're right. So we'll shoot for 40. I just want to make sure we didn't end at 8:30. Great. Okay, so let's start with what do you value? What are the strengths? What is special about this community that's going to attract candidates there?
I'll start. This is Ross.
Thanks,
Ross. I think we have a tradition of excellence. Those things that are best. I think we also value diversity. I think people move to this community because they want to have an urban setting. They want a diverse community, and they value a top-notch education to help their kids, no matter where they fall within the academic spectrum. And it's a school that is hopeful to be able to educate all kids.
Great, thank you, Ross. And good, someone else.
Can you see me? I think we also value a demonstrated commitment to equity. So not just somebody who talks the talk, but shows evidence of walking the walk. I think that's going to be really important because everybody has a different need level, and equity helps level set that so people get what they need when they need it.
Yeah, good. We want to see distinct examples of what candidates have done. Good. Good. Thank you. Barbara, how about your mic's open? So I see that. I'm going to call on you then. Barbara Swope.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it just went blank. The two thoughts that came to mind, and that definitely is someone who's bringing new thoughts. Not that has to be reflected in age, but more innovative thinking. I think that OPRF is a place that welcomes new thoughts, new things to be tested and tried, was a thought that came to my mind.
Good. Yeah, thanks. And that's sometimes difficult to balance with those traditions of excellence. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
So I've only been in the community for kind of in the 8 to 10 year range. I'm not a lifer in Oak Park. But I will say that Dr. Pruitt-Adams has been very courageous, as in my opinion, as it pertains to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think to what Ms. Heard Johnson was referring to a little while ago, you know, and Ross did as well, you know, I think there's this perception of the community valuing diversity and inclusion. That's certainly a component of why I'm here and raising my kids in this community. And the question is whether or not that's actually something that is playing itself out in the community or not. And I think that there's a lot of people that are willing to be kind of in the shadows and or poking around at the status quo. And I think one of the tremendous values that Dr. Pruitt-Adams brought was a courage of conviction to do what's right. And so I think that what would be really imperative in her replacement is also having somebody that can both manage the teaching union as well as the board and really be very thoughtful and intentional about continuing that work.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I met with the department heads earlier today, and they talked about the importance of intentionality and working with the board, and also not getting just sidetracked by a million things that come up. Mr. Ash, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
That's Ms. Hi.
Oh, Ms. Anthony Ash on my part.
I'm sorry. This is where it
Sorry.
comes into problems. Anthony, do you want to go?
That was user error. I do not have a question yet.
Oh, user error. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
going to ask. I'll keep it in the family. Sorry, that's pretty funny. So I'm going to kind of segue into strengths because it seems like we're going that way. One thing I really appreciate about Dr. Pruitt-Adams, because I've now been in the D200 community for 2 years, because that was when my kids joined the high school. At the administrative level, and I see this in the board, I see this the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, Mr. Johnson, I've had opportunity to really interact with them, and similarly in District 97 and other districts in the area. What I think sets D200 apart right now under the leadership of Dr. Pruitt-Adams is a transparency, a willingness to take the hard line in a community where everyone's like, I've lived here for like 500 years, and so like we should never change anything. Right, I have not. But I also really appreciate the evidence-driven approach that they take, and it is backed by, like, they have. It's not that they're bringing out research at every phase, but I know that the best practices that they mention are best practices, not cherry-picked random things that support a personal idea of what it should be, but they are actually using that as a lens through which to achieve the equity that we do value in this community. And I see their attempts to do that. It's not easy. Our equity, one of the challenges we're going to have to expand upon. I think while I see it in the leadership, I don't see that trickle down to staff and teachers. So even in terms of special education, with people being aware of current data in special education. So I've dealt with special education on a lot of different levels.
Sure.
And we don't, like, you will hear the old myths come up. And I hear even the old myths coming up in other districts. And I don't see that. I see a need for that education at OPRF. And I think that, you know, I could expect to see more of that if Dr. Pruitt-Adams were staying. But I'm just saying, like, the person coming in needs to be able to be really steeped in best educational practices and not be trying to push through programs to be a disruptor. Because I hear, like, new thoughts, but don't change it up to change it up, and don't rely on a single book or a single article to underlie your whole opinion of how things should be.
Yeah, the thoughtfulness and again, evidence, proof, proven practices that positively impact kids. That's key. Good. Let me see if I saw other hands up. I saw Mr. Henry. Your mic was open. I know I think we have a one-on-one with you coming up on Monday, but you're welcome. And then Leslie will come to you after Mr. Henry.
Yeah, we do. I actually was not raising it, but I will talk since you did call me out to speak. But one thing I do like about Dr. Adams, so my background as my training was urban planner, so for housing community development, and was important when we did any kind of stakeholder meetings was the ability to communicate with all different levels of stakeholders. And Oak Park is very diverse, not just racially or ethnically, as well as economically. And it's not just Oak Park, you're also talking about Oak Park and River Forest, which is also a different community. So the person that is going to be successful here will have to know how to balance different types of groups and subgroups within a place that can be, I don't say volatile, but there's a lot of different opinions here. And you have to know how to deal with all groups and try to come to a meeting of the minds. And it's not going to be easy. And more importantly, they have to be in it for the long haul, because it is great to talk about equity inclusion because it's the hot topic for the past couple of years. But when the limelight kind of fades a little bit, because these things do, will they still be in it to see it to the end or pass the torch to the next person?
Yeah, that's a great point. That sustained focus is critical. And, so many districts, equity issues only come up once a year when test scores are reported, and no progress is ever going to be made that way. So appreciate that thought about the sustained focus. Leslie, go ahead. You were raising your hand a minute ago.
Good afternoon or good evening. Thank you. I think building on Barbara's comment about forward thinking, I think as we are at the the turn of the, well, not the turn of the century, but 2020, we obviously need to have someone that's forward thinking and thinking about how and where our children will be intersecting in the future with technology, with entrepreneurship, with different ways that we're working, especially even now coming out of COVID. So I think just someone that has a vision and has some creativity, I think, in terms of bringing us and pulling us into the future, because we may not want to do that as somebody steeped in kind of traditions. I think that's really important to continue our sense of excellence. And then the second area, I think, building on the person that spoke before, I do appreciate the level of transparency and communication. And it seems there's a whole culture, especially from the administration, of communication and over communicating and making sure that we're hearing everything over and over and over again, that we all understand where we're going. And with such a large organization or large number of people that she's talking to, or that the administration is talking to, I've been very impressed that we understand where we're going. And I kind of have a dimension of a D200 child and a D97 child. So I think that communication is very, very important, and a culture of communication and transparency across the administration and into the faculty.
Right, good. And with the elementary point, good. Well, let's move on now to the challenges the new superintendent is going to face. And I can only see like 16 people once, so there's that little raised hand icon at the bottom. And if you touch on that, I know that pops up and it puts your name at the top of the list. So that may be an easier way to get Chuck's attention and my attention than just waving. But if you wave, we'll do our best to see you. And of course, you can always use the chat. And as an example, I'm going to use the chat. I'm going to drop in our survey link. So if you have not taken the survey yet, and we'll put this up again at the end of the, oops, let me put it in there. I have to copy it again. We'll put it up at the end of the evening as well. And we do have some nice chat in here. And Ross, yes, I'm trying to keep people on. We're trying to keep people on strengths, but also, of course, that bleeds into what we're looking for. But Tim, I appreciate your comment about valuing and listening to stakeholders as well. So we'll capture that chat record and the strengths. But let's move into challenges now. What are some of the challenges, big and small, short term and long term, that the next leader is going to have to is going to face and have to address and do so effectively? And okay, so Corrine, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I would say a big challenge is race. And I don't just mean racial equity in terms of test scores and grades and classes, which is one part of it, but like the racial climate. There's been a lot of issues in Oak Park that obviously carry over to the high school in terms of incidents, hate incidents in town, and some stuff that's recently been going on with the upcoming elections. There's just a lot around race that is really starting to get bigger, I feel like, and that's a huge issue that I think that the new superintendent is going to face. And I would say in particular, the diversifying the teacher staff. Yeah. That's one thing that has, I was pretty surprised by, frankly, when my son started, in terms of the lack of teachers of color at OPRF. And that is very much related to all the other issues as well. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I met with the executive cabinet this morning. I think, this morning or yesterday. And, that's a diverse group. And, you would like to see the same in the faculty and teaching staff. Go ahead, Ross. And then we'll come to you, Misty. Go ahead, Ross.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute. I think one of the challenge is going to have to bring this community together. And I think it is along with race. I think our community has been bucketed into various groups, and we tend to talk to people in our own group, right? So there's echo chambering and talking to only people that we agree with. And it's becoming more polarized, whether it's about educational practices, race, or other issues. And I think it's going to be really hard. And someone that's coming to this community, particularly if they're outside this community, has to understand that. And if we don't, someone had mentioned the communication is good. I think the communication sometimes breaks us into different groups and doesn't bring us all together as one OPRF, one OPRF Husky, and we're reminded of what group we're in or what group we're not in and who's doing this. And I think it's a really balancing act, because you really want to bring all voices to the table. But at the same time, if we're not coming together, it's not going to help our community and it's not going to help our school. And I have a junior and a freshman there. And just over the past 3 years, I don't think our community has gotten more together. I think our community has gotten more apart and more divisive. And I don't know what it is. It's not only at the high school, it's at a national level. But whoever comes to this community has really got to try to get everyone together instead of separate. And it comes in a lot of different ways and fashion. But I think that's job number one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Part of it is just the cultural of the last few years, and hope that we can see that change. But we've heard that a few times. You have to have the voices at the table and listen to each other too. Thanks, Ross. Misty, how about you? And then we'll go to you, Anthony, and we have some feedback in that as well. But go ahead, Ms. Olson.
Well, I'm kind of having some of the same thoughts, so I might be repeating it. But one of the strengths of our community is people are very, very passionate, but oftentimes those passions are conflicting. And I think, as everyone has said, there has to be a certain level of diplomacy, because a lot of times we have to parse between passion and emotion and combine that with facts and data and try to figure out the right way to balance the decision making, so that you're finding the right balance of being understanding to the emotions of the community, for whatever the issue we may be addressing, but also looking at relevant data to say, does it support the decision, even though emotions may want to, you look no further than the decision to go hybrid, right? And that's been a very delicate balancing act, because you have CDC or science and doctors saying it's safe to open, and you have many members of the community saying, no, it's not. And that's a really tough decision that everybody's been grappling with. And where is that happy medium? And once this pandemic is gone, it's everything else. It's curriculum changes. It's a lot of
Right.
things. And are we making the right decisions based on supported evidence, as opposed to making decisions because they're emotional or we're passionate or it sounds good. And I think those are all really, really tricky balancing acts. We have a lot of stakeholders with a lot of passion who bring a lot of different perspectives. And sometimes those are polar opposites. And my limited experiences, that's a tough balancing act. And and you need buy-in for whatever we decide to do. You're going to have to get buy-in. And so how do you what is the right diplomatic skills to bring everyone to the table and, find the right compromise?
Yeah. And give everyone a voice at the table too. I mean, we heard one thing to be at the table, another thing to have a voice. Yeah. Absolutely correct. And that will take a skilled leader for sure. Go ahead, Mr. Ash, Anthony. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks. I'm actually ready this time. It wasn't a mistake. I actually have 3 challenges, but I'll try to be really brief. I think the first 2 are very actionable. So I would double down on Connie's statements around more diverse teachers. I think that's actionable. That's something that we can change in the short term is hiring practices and having more diverse teachers for our students. We have a senior that graduated last year. We have a sophomore now, and we have an 8th grader coming. And so we're passionate about the teachers that are there. I think throughout our raising our kids in the neighborhood, I think the second challenge that we have is I think we have a tremendous opportunity a couple of people made comments around the community pulling apart. I see things like sports, music, entertainment. We have the amount of activities that students have at Oak Park River Forest is incredible, but I haven't seen them actually be used to truly pull the community together. Often it's sports that do that. Sometimes it's music that does that. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity to do that. That's the second challenge. Third challenge is I believe in big, hairy, audacious goals. And I don't see any reason why Oak Park River Forest doesn't have the right makeup, the right diversity of ethnicity, of gender, of wealth and compensation and families. There's no reason why OPRF can't be the #1 high school in the state. And I think that should be the goal. And I think you can eliminate 90% of the high schools because they don't have the ingredients that we have. And so then it narrows down to the 10% of the high schools that have the ingredients that we have. And so how do we have a superintendent that takes us from the as is where we are now, which I would argue is good, but not great, to the great, which is the best high school in the state.
Yeah. And then that is a big, hairy, and audacious, but it's an aspirational, but it's also achievable, Anthony. From what we're learning, I think clearly the talent is there, and but you have to do it together. Great point. Barbara, we'll come to you in a minute. I got Heather or no, who I had in the queue. Well, Barbara, we will go to you. After you can take down your hand if I know, for example, Anthony and Ross, you still have your hand up. So go ahead and take it down. Heather.
Sorry, we got a lag. To Anthony's point, we do, OPRF is really phenomenal as a high school. I think that there is a disparity between District 200 and District 97 that I won't go into. But in terms of District 97, it feels very much like they want students not to go above a certain level. This is my personal opinion. D200 is like, hey, you're going. We want you to succeed. And I definitely get that message. And it was like whiplash. This is a little bit more subtle. I used to work for Triton, which is our nearby community college. There is a definite opinion in the halls of OPRF that community college is for losers. It's for kids who can't afford to go to big schools. It's for kids who couldn't qualify for big schools. And that's pretty much in the eye of the faculty. I know the special ed meetings tend to go, hey, you're going to community college. And they don't encourage kids with disabilities of whatever kind to aim for the larger schools that they would be perfectly qualified for. As a teacher there, it was a problem with students who were going to a community college for whatever reason, getting this continuous message from the OPRF community, like, we're amazing, but you're not measuring up, if that makes sense. And I hear that message in a lot of different places over my time there. And I've heard this from other parents. And I really think we need to rebuild our relationship with the local community colleges, which are not for losers. And they're like, this is a valid choice for a lot of our students, regardless of where they're coming from. So that needs to be taken into consideration with the new superintendent.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a president of Illinois Math and Science Academy for 6 years, and we actually had some of our students would do year-long research projects, authentic research with some of the folks from the community colleges.
So what's funny is my son is there now. My son is at IMSA. So, but this is one of those things. No, I know, and I don't talk about it, but OPRF, like, it was, if you don't get into IMSA, we're perfectly thrilled that you are at OPRF. So that is like, we're excited by that. It's just a different school. So yes, exactly. We should be able to offer those same types of options.
Yeah, great partnerships. Good. Barbara, you are now up next. Go ahead.
Yes. Switch it up a little bit here and talking about a strength for the next superintendent. And I think that's someone who is going to have a strong financial knowledge that has shown proven experience dealing with financial constraints. I worry that somebody's going to look at OPRF, look at Oak Park, River Forest, look at the budget we currently, the money that we currently have, and say, oh, this is going to be sweet. But I think we are just moments, if not years away from some really financial challenging times. The school needs a lot of work done to it. And there's been a lot of debate of how to do that. There was a lot of talk about a capital program. I don't know if that's still moving or if that's kind of done a back burner with no one at the school to be around. But that's really something that I worry about. That's going to be a huge challenge very quickly for the new superintendent.
Yeah, I know they have a 5-phase plan with the Imagine group, and you're right. I mean, we heard everything was kind of put on hold because of COVID, and it does need a lot. Robert Wilson actually had mentioned in the chat about damage control related to the pool, and it's interesting how that's taken on a life of its own over the course of the years. Yeah, Robert, do you want to elaborate on that at all? Because I think it does get into what Barbara was saying. Yeah.
I mean,
we all know.
To keep it brief, it's been way too much conversation as far as I'm concerned. And I have a couple of swimmers that are getting in the pool now again in recent weeks. But I think that there's been so much conversation around this topic for the last 5 to 10 years that I think if the school board or if others can, and maybe this is now a topic that's relatively resolved because the phase 1 of the capital improvement project is happening. And so maybe there's going to be a couple of year hiatus for this conversation, but it certainly was a lightning rod in recent years for local elections. So to the extent that the community can either figure out what our strategy is, but not have that be so cumbersome on the next superintendent, I think that would probably be a good thing for all involved.
Right, and I just want to add on that my financial comment was a lot to do with how much more can we get from the community as we make these demands that we want to elevate here, elevate there. A lot of times that requires money. Where is that coming from? Additionally, the state of Illinois education, the teachers' pensions if some of that money has to come back down to the individual communities. I just believe that there's a lot beyond just the immediate. I'm with you. I hope the pool fight is gone and fighting over various improvements to the school. But I think it's beyond just making the campus nice, the challenges we're about to face.
Well, yeah, and there's a book called The Third Teacher too, and that's about how structures and environments and spaces, how important they are. But you have to find a way to, somebody said earlier, how do you get buy-in for something like that? And that's, why the pool thing struck me, because you are going to have buy-in for infrastructure work and that. But Ross, is your hand still up, or did you not take it down? Go ahead.
It is up, and I think this goes along with what Barbara said. I think what I was saying was people move to Oak Park for the schools and they leave for the taxes.
Yeah.
At some point, if they're not coming for the schools and we have high taxes, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. And I think, if we're in the challenges kind of bucket here, if you're looking at challenges, I really do think we are losing some community support for Oak Park. And I think you're losing some alumni support. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're sticking with interest in the challenges, I'm not saying it's very widespread, but there's a lot more conversations of what other options are there. Like, I'm moving to Oak Park for the schools. I'm not quite sure. Do I look at alternative schools? And at some point, if that's a wave, now you're going to lose a tax base and people won't come for the school. So I think it's really important to just recognize that that's a risk or a challenge. If you lose community support, you won't come for the schools anymore. And I think that's a real something that's happening. Again, I think it's nationwide. It's a lot of tension in the world with COVID and race relations, but you really gotta get the community involved and committed to this community.
Involved and committed. Great phrasing. And it is, yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one more thing, and I like what Anthony said. I mean, why can't we achieve the best school in the country? I think we were pretty close to it 10 years ago or so. There's nothing. People move to this community for the schools, for the diversity, for the transportation, for the urban setting. Why can't we? And I think we should. And I think we've also lost a little edge on academic excellence too. At the end of the day, we're Oak Park River Forest High School. It's a school, and we should focus on academics. I think parents want it. I think community members want it.
They do. They want and demand it. Frankly, yeah. Good. Thank you, Misty. Go. Let's see. I think you just pull your hand down.
No, I'm debating. I'm putting my hand up. I'm putting my hand down.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to speak to what Ross is saying, and I think that is, and I do think it has to be caveated with kind of this remote and hybrid, and there's a lot of opinions about kind of all of that, and there were people making different decisions, academic decisions for their kids, and like Ross said, 10 years ago, OPRF was kind of considered cutting edge. We were sort of the best of the best, trailblazer, and that has diminished over the years. Why that is, I don't know. I do think there is a subset of people in the community who feels like we are lowering the bar to accomplish goals as opposed to raising the bar and raising people up to meet our goals. And I don't want to get canceled if I've said that wrong or if I've somehow said it in such a way that is negative, which is not what I'm trying to say. But I do think that is a concern and a perception and things that I have heard in other forums. And I see that, I spend the time monitoring a lot of social media, and those are the conversations where I see a lot of division in the community. So that, how we are prioritizing, how we're making our decisions. And again, all of that, I think that is going to be really crucial to keep the, kind of to some of the things Ross was speaking to.
Yeah. And keep them from being diluted. Corinne, you put in the chat box about doing well with talented students, but could be better with the others. Could you elaborate for a moment as far as a challenge? I don't know if it's Corinne or Corrine. I don't know if I'm
yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, even this conversation just now about wanting to Oak Park to be the best in the country,
Right,
like that kind of thing. I feel like Oak Park is sort of obsessed with like, you know, I think they spend an inordinate amount of time, you know, kind of lifting up students that have done these amazing things. And it's great that we have those kids here. I mean, that is really great. But I think that if you're not in that top 5-10%, you know, there's not a lot of attention to you. And there's always this pressure to be in that 5 or 10 top percent, as opposed to, you know, like the person said earlier, what if you don't want to go to a private school? What if you know, want to stay here and go to community college? What if you want to get a job? And I feel like the way that I see the communications and the correspondence and the way that the community talks about the high school, it's very much about being the very, very best. And there's nothing wrong with being the best, but not everybody can be the best. And so I just feel like, the emphasis and the amount of time and energy put into that is disproportionate to like the diversity of the population that we have at OPRF.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We got some feedback on that. Mr. Henry, go ahead. Kabriv. And then Ms. Yarrow, go ahead. Mr. Henry, you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that oh, sorry. I jumped in.
You can go first. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. Yarrow.
I guess, I mean, it does come down to what defines the best. And are we talking about, a lot of different things that can make us the best. It doesn't just have to be academics. It can be the socio-emotional health of our student body. It can be where our graduates are 10 years from now. Are they, they don't necessarily have to be working for Google, but are they successful in their own right? And how did they get there? Did they go to community college? Did they go to a trade school? Those are all things that I think are, part of that. What is, those things that are best, that, our motto says. And I think there is an issue at OPRF with playing to the extremes. If you're really struggling or, you're going to Harvard, you're being paid attention to. But those kids in the middle, I do think get lost in the cracks at OPRF. And I think we can do a better job. And I don't think that means that we can't also focus on all these other goals of equity. And it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game in order to achieve those things that are best. But some people's definition of best is, different from others.
Well, I think that needs to be clarified. I mean, what somebody said earlier about all bringing people together and pulling along. I mean, that's a key part of it. Good. And Mr. Henry, and then Chuck, we have somebody with a hand up who's an attendee, and I don't have the power to unmute them or I don't think even chat with them. So if you could address that in a moment, but Mr. Henry, you're on.
Well, Ginger pretty much took what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, but I love how you put it. And I'll just kind of piggyback on it. And it just really, what's the definition of the best? So I'll talk from my own personal example. My daughter graduated last year, and now she's pre-med at UIC, and she was always in a top percentage of the school, right? I also have two sons coming up. They may not be that. They may want to be a tradesman. They might want to be a mechanic, might want to be a plumber, electrician. So it's determined what is success. Is it going to a great school like Notre Dame or USC, and then you have a mountain of debt, and then you have a job working at Walgreens or wherever you're doing? It doesn't really matter. So I think what's important is, our kids going to be successful in life. This measurement tool of being the best of the best, I get it. I do. But do you want our kids to be successful in life, period? Not just go to the best school, and what if it doesn't work out? Right. But I think as we have on this call right now, we have different opinions, and I don't want to speak for Ross or the other person who spoke after, or I think Misty. And I think those conversations should be having more depth, because we're having conversations on social media and you're seeing this kind of divergence of opinions. Let's sit down and talk about what we're talking about here and figure out what you want, because most disagreements arise from not understanding other person's perspective. Right. And
until we get to that point, you might have the same discussions over and over again, right? So I don't define success as the best, because I can tell you, I went to school with some people that had a great GRE or GMAT score and struggled in grad school.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's what are we measuring for success? That's the key.
Yeah. Well, good. And Leslie, thank you for your definition of the best school there in the chat. Nicely done. Ross, go ahead too. I like your vision for excellence at all levels in the chat, but I see you have your hand up as well. And then
Yeah,
we'll
I mean, I think it goes with Mr. Henry said. You're right. What is the definition of success? But I think if we have a vision of excellence for every single student, wherever you fall in your academic journey as you come into that high school, be treated as an individual, be treated as someone that can do their best for that person, whatever that vision of success is, and don't assume that they want to be, the 4.9 student with weighted, but whatever they want, meet that person where they are and help them achieve what they want. And you're right, there are very, very differing degrees of success and excellence, but I think that's up to the parent, the child, to make sure they understand what that can be. And that school should provide all those options to whether, wherever you fall within the achievement world, you get to define your own, but the tools have to be in that school so everyone can take advantage of it.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, I'm going to move in the next 15 minutes now into qualifications and characteristics. And I want to say that Corrine read my mind, because I have not heard from Lailani, Froween, Michelle, Reb, so Sophia. So we're gonna, Matt, we heard from you earlier. We haven't heard from Pete. So we're gonna include everybody's voices. So what we want to do now is hear from you and from everybody as well, but not to shut off any voices. But I would like to learn from you what you feel as Wakani are the key personal and professional qualifications, attributes, experiences, expertise that this next superintendent needs to bring to the district. If there's examples of other leaders that things they have done, not necessarily superintendents, but just I think it's always good to, of course, talk, with stories as well. So think about that for a few moments, and now that you've thought about it, let's we'll take who's right in the middle. Natalie, that would be you. What are you looking for at least in the middle of my screen here? So what are you looking for in the next leader?
And while she's collecting,
sorry, I was still muted there. Sorry. I think the next superintendent is going to, and I think this was brought up earlier, going to have to be creative in their solutions. I think they're going to have to be actionable. We've had, not Dr. Pruitt-Adams, but we've had leaders who talked a lot with very little action. While, and this may be an unpopular opinion, while they do need to listen to the community members, at some point they have to say, I'm an educator, I've been in education, I've worked at schools, I know how this works and how better to do certain things than all of these voices. But at the same time, they also need to be able to communicate that sort of thing without ruffling too many feathers. I think it's a fine line, being able to lead and make decisions and convincing people that those are the right decisions.
And absolutely, and someone who gets things done. I love that.
Yes.
Nicely put. Thad, you just came on the screen. Would you like to add to that, please?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think there really is, this person has to manage people one-on-one throughout the building, day in and day out, but they need to be a communicator and they need to bring people along. It's a bully pulpit, and to be able to in a Zoom call or in a room, to hold a room and just bring the community along with whatever this person has decided to do is key. That Dr. Pruitt-Adams did a good job at that, but the point, I don't think you can succeed if you can't do that. And so that has to be part of it.
Yeah, it requires presence, relationships. I like that, bring the room along. Good. Susan, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think kind of along the same lines, the way I look at it is having the right balance between grit and grace. I think it's a tough job. You've got to, have the strength and knowledge of yourself and your beliefs and what is right based on, research and all of that, but also have a sense of grace in dealing with all of the different constituents, listening and balancing that. And I think, that's something that's been my observation with Dr. Pruitt-Adams is she has that nice balance. And I think, that balance is something that's kind of the way I summarize it in my head, is a balance of grit and grace.
Great, good. Thank you. That's a great way to phrase it. Pete, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. So Thad, it's really interesting. I had written down as well a communicator. So bringing people together, collaboration. So between D97, the Oak Park Township, just somebody who can deliver the message to say, this is where we are going collectively as an education system within OPRF or within Oak Park. I also wrote down Oak Park River Forest as a destination. So if people are coming to our community, I know we came to our community for the schools, starting out in elementary school and worked our way through the middle school to the high school. So if there's a way that we can create, again, a path, like the destination of new families are moving in to the community, Oak Park River Forest High School is the destination as to where we're going. The other piece I'd like to add or just bring up is what kind of input are the students having around this?
So,
yeah, and
I'll answer that. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll answer that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. That's all.
So, yeah, and I'll tell you that I'm concerned about that. I only had 5 students in my focus group the other day, and they were terrific. But they were also 5 of the student leaders. There were no African-American students. There were no Latinas. But they were, 4 girls and a young man, 3 juniors and a senior, no freshmen, no sophomores. And so we have our survey out, and I'm actually going to reconnect with Gail and Karen and the team tomorrow, because we have almost 1,000 responses, but they're basically from parents and taxpayers without kids in the school. And we need a lot more from teachers, and we need a lot from students. I think we have something like 40 or 50 students. And so that has to.
Yeah, because they will give us insight as to what's needed. And I don't think they're going to sugarcoat things.
No, not at all. I'll put a slide up that on it. I'll put it in the chat. No, they were very straightforward. One of the things somebody said is that, Ms. Pruitt, I think, is doing a fine job, but we need a principal. I want to see somebody who can relate to me and who I can see around, an adult that, cares about everyone. And I don't know what they did. I'm just telling you what they said, which I thought was very, very interesting. And their concerns about their peers' mental health and social emotional well-being, and about, we heard a lot about that from even just those 5. But anyway, Great point, Pete. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had.
Look, Misty, that's a fabulous idea, by the way.
Mhm.
Use the advisory period to get the surveys. Thanks for the thought. Good.
Mhm.
We'll follow up with that. I didn't see
And
any.
even,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry,
Pete.
if I may, around the advisory periods for the collective surveys, even drive that down to the parents to say,
Mhm.
can you have your children review this survey? Because there's a lot of that. And so just take that to another level. You might get a broader.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to drop the survey in the chat. I have a slide with the two that I'll put on after we sign off. But if you haven't filled it out, please do so, and certainly have your kids and others. And we'll work with we had a no-show group that Connie was going to meet with at 4. That I was hoping we could get the survey to them. So I think we'll reschedule some of our teacher leadership and get it out the door to them too. As best we can. But let's talk about other characteristics, qualification attributes. We have some great ideas in the chat, by the way. But Michelle, we haven't heard from you. Leilani, we haven't heard from you. Can you?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we really need to take a look at and consider is somebody who's really forward thinking and taking a look at what's going on in society. We obviously mentioned several things on this call already. And how is that impacting our students, and what do we need to do from a broader education of students to make sure that we are truly developing informed and responsible citizens, regardless of what they end up doing for, their career journey and after high school. So a more holistic stance in terms of thinking through, I think about, for example, whether, you take a look at the election cycle or other things that are going on, you think about the pandemic and, information around vaccine and medical information, right? There's so much dis and misinformation.
Yep.
Well, how are we educating our students to be better news literate, for example, right? Like, to me, that's something that every high school should be addressing. So we need somebody who's going to have some foresight and who's going to see some of these things that are happening in society in general, and is going to figure out, all right, how do we better prepare the students who we have in school right now to deal with some of these emerging issues?
Exactly. And how do you have civil discourse related to those issues? Yeah, it was in the Great Books Foundation board, and we talked a lot about civil discourse, is how important that is. And that seems to have gotten lost in the recent history. And that's so important for kids, just like you said, in dealing and understanding misinformation, the accuracy of information. Thanks, Michelle. Leilani, am I hoping to pronounce it? Leilani, how about you? What would you like to see?
Yeah, well, I think one of the strengths of OPRF for myself, we moved out here because there was so much opportunity to participate in everything under the sun for our kids. And I think that it's really important for the next superintendent to buy into that, to be able to, provide opportunities and exposure to lots of different things throughout, our community, and also just as a world citizen for our students. I think it's really important for them to be able to develop those skills and learning about the world, learning to be world citizens. And, if they're really interested in something, there should be an outlet for that. And I think that that's where we're going to develop our strengths as a community. I know we moved here from the city, from Chicago, because, I had read somewhere that a bunch of kids took a trip to Tanzania, and I was like, that's amazing. So, and I think that's one of our strengths is this, just
yes, it is.
Plethora of opportunities for our students.
Good. And the ability to carve out some of their own opportunities too. And good. We need to engage their voice to further those. So we have down the right side, Froween, Rep, and Sophia. As we close out here, Sophia, go ahead. Yeah.
I'll speak up. I agree with a lot of the things that have been said. The only thing I'd add is I think superintendent is a good listener, and that can really support the staff and faculty. And as people were talking, I feel like in the 2 years that I've been on the council, I've learned and having 2 kids that have graduated from the school, there's so many amazing programs that OPRF has. We're talking about great schools and we've got to be the best. But I think if we can get someone that can come in, work with the faculty and staff, students to assess what we do well, and continue to do it. Because I think we do so many things so well. And I think we're often trying to outdo another school or to try to do more things. And I think the business incubator, all our performing arts programs, visual arts programs, engineering. I think we have partnerships, or we learned a lot last year about the partnerships with Triton and actually supporting students to consider trade schools. And I feel like maybe we're not communicating that to the community. So I think a listener, a superintendent that can listen and assess what we're doing and continue to do the things that the community enjoys, to continue to do it well.
Oh, good. Yeah. Listen and sustain. Right. Good. Reb, Froeen, either of you, and then I know Ross has his hand up. So go ahead.
I feel like everybody's covered pretty much everything that I would wish to comment on, but I would just like to see someone that's capable of communicating by capturing the community's attention.
Oh, wow.
Because right now, it feels like there's, in the whole world, just so much information awash that we kind of need someone that could help us focus and not have everything just get lost. Yeah. Because our attention is pulled in so many directions. It seems like we need someone who will help us all coalesce, I guess.
Oh, that's right. Instead of diluting, right? That's a nice image to have. Yeah. Froeen, and then Ross, and then I'll ask Connie to say a word while I put up our emails, and which are in the chat and the survey link. So Froeen, and then we'll go to Ross.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really good discussion, and I applaud you for getting the feedback of the group and of a lot of different stakeholders, including the students. Of course, many of the things that have already been mentioned are what I think are really important to consider when you're looking for that person. I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking it's probably impossible to get all of those qualifications that everyone's saying in one person. But the important thing is to prioritize what's most important based on the feedback that you're getting from all the constituents that really highlight what makes OPRF an excellent school, an excellent place to be, and a draw for the community. Our family, like others, came here with the intention of the kids growing up to go to OPRF. And so I think that's common with a lot of families that you hear that are in Oak Park and River Forest. But I think sometimes what gets lost with all of the different stakeholdering and trying to please everyone, you've heard communication over and over and over again. I don't think that I think it is important that the person that takes this role can articulate what's important in a way that doesn't polarize the community and cause them to pit them, different groups against each other. But it's going to have to be a person that can surround themselves with a team that can fill the gaps that person doesn't have. Because I don't have I'm not naive enough to think that one person's going to be able to do all of that, but they're going to have to be able to assemble a high performing team to be able to do that, as well as partner with the community, the students, and other stakeholders that are really critical to the success of where we're trying to go. So I know it's a tall order, but I think this is a step in the right direction, getting the feedback to be able to do that. And I think that I'm optimistic that we can get there. It's not easy, but I think that once you have somebody in that role, there has to be support for them, knowing that they're not going to please everyone, and someone that's going to be supported with being decisive, as well as being able to articulate why you're doing things, having it use the facts and the research and the data, and being able to connect with the community as well as the school and the kids.
And have your team connect with the community. That's really a good thought. I know Connie and I when we recruit and screen and interview candidates. That's one of the things we look for is how can they, what has been their success of building an impactful team. But Ross, go ahead, and then I'm going to turn over to Connie for a moment and put it up, and it's getting near 8:55, but time flies. Go ahead, Ross.
Sure. I think one of the things that I think could be unifying is I think we need to begin to put students first. I think there's so many, challenges in our community. There's so many challenges in the world. I think if we made more decisions on what is best for this child, what is best for the students, I think that cuts away a lot of the noise, right? You can disagree with the decision, but if you really focus on the child and what is best for each and every individual child, we're going to be in a better spot. And it's not, this political group or that political group. It's, hey, how can we help this student? And I'll give you an example. And this is where I think we're losing community support, Max.
Okay.
I have a family friend whose child went to Oak Park. I would say he's an artistic kid, super outgoing, but kind of shy in the same respect. And I grew up here, so I'm one of those guys that thinks tradition is everything, but I also recognize there's a future. And Oak Park should have been the school for this kid because of the arts,
right?
And because of the community. And the family chose to move that child out of the school because there were challenges with schoolwork and scheduling, and they chose to left, and it was heartbreaking, right? And so I think of that, if we just would have thought about helping that kid, he would have stayed here. And then that family would have told the story, and you get community buy-in. I'll tell you another story. This is, it's just about the philosophy of the education. I think a lot of families are beginning to look at other schools because they're not finding a community at Oak Park. There's all this divisiveness. And whether you want to go to Oak Park or you value diversity, at some point there's so much noise, you just rather have something, hey, this is going to be a strict school, and the old priest is going to use a ruler, but I know what I'm getting. I think a lot of people aren't really sure what Oak Park is trying to do or trying to come to terms with. And it's a lot. And it's a lot easier to manage one school with a single vision than what Oak Park has. And I get that. But at some point, people aren't going to move here. They're not going to want to send their kid there if they're just not sure. And I think that's happening in our community. So I think that's one of those challenges of really gaining back the community support and towing in one direction. Sorry, I talked way too much, but I think that I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, Ross. And so I want to thank you for your commitment. This is truly inspiring. And I know if we'll find somebody that can do all of it, but certainly will do their best to put together a team and frankly, rely on students to help further this vision and this progress, sustain focus on what needs to be done. But Connie, how about you? And then I'll share our screen real quickly with our emails.
I also appreciate all of the information which you shared. It was very well done. I think that Froween and Ross sort of summarized everything in the end. And what it's really about are the children. And if we focus on the children and take care of them, and it's like I had a conversation with one of the community members yesterday. In fact, we had a long conversation, could barely get off the phone. But it had to do with, why are some kids successful? Why is it that some others are not successful? And in fact, he even sent me an email and I responded. And I said, these are all our children. Oak Park is a village. River Forest is a village. It takes a village to see that the kids are successful. So it becomes critical that the schools and the leadership, not only at the school level, but also within the village, is working together on behalf of our children. And if we have any segment of the population, any group of children who are not succeeding, it pulls us all down. And so if we really want to be successful, we can't forget any group of children. We've got to see that they all have an opportunity to be the best that they can be, because we never know if there's an Einstein out there, or if there is just someone with incredible talent that, we are not recognizing. And then these people do great things later on in life, and we didn't recognize it when they were here in our schools. So thank you again for everything that you contributed and the information, and I've captured it. And even before you started talking about personal and professional characteristics, you had named a number of them. And so I got those also. So thank you for being willing participants in this process.
Great, good. Thanks, Connie. And so Chuck, back to you if I could lead us up just for a moment. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Max and Connie. And thank you, everybody, this evening for your comments, your input. It does mean a lot to hear from you, and I know it is a big help as we move forward. One thing I would say, Max, and everything we've talked about tonight really centers upon one word, and that's leadership. And I think, you know, as you interview the candidates, I would be searching for a once in a generation or a once in a lifetime type leader. That's the kind of leader we need in our area, and the kind of leader that will be able to gather and communicate, build teams, cast vision, raise financial support, speak to all kind of audiences, that type of leader. So we believe you're going to do a great job, and we're cheering you on. So thank you again, Connie and Max, for this evening, and thank you everybody for your comments. I do want to transition. We have just a couple of minutes. Looks like we're not going to end before 9. It's the first time this year. But hey, if anybody has any member announcements, I want to turn the floor open for member announcements. Going once. Going twice. All right, everybody. Well, that will bring this meeting to a close. I call for the adjournment of this meeting, and I look forward to seeing you in and around the community. And again, our next community council gathering will be March 4th at 7:30 p.m. also right here on Zoom. So we look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everybody, and have a good evening.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
Sure. Thank you, Max.
Okay. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Okay, great. Take care.